Okay, good afternoon. The shir is Leila Nishmas Shlomo Hirsch ben Avraham Dov. Leila Nishmato. And it's Refuah Shalem V'Yehuda Chaim and Esther. And it's Leila Nishmas William and Helen, Rochel Bas Yosef, David ben Avraham, and Tzida ben Chaim Pesach, Yitzchak ben Sarah, Devorah Bas Yitzchak, Avram Mordechai David, Chaim ben Fega, Mordechai Netzach ben Rivka, Chaim ben Gedalia, Rochel Bas Yosef, Eliezer ben Yaakov, Zalman Lei ben Moshe, Chaim Eliyahu ben Yosef Moshe, Amichai ben Yaakov, Gedalia ben Tzvu Ruvain. Leila Nishmat? Who is she? Refuah Shalema. Maddie, Masha Leah Bat Devorah, Shem Shetzan Refuah Shalema, Masha Leah Bat Devorah, B'toch Shachar Yisrael. Her success operation should be a success. It's amazing how in this week, not just the Haftorah, but the Parsha also has mamish current events. If you take a look at the Haftorah, you'll fall off your chair. Without a Bible codes, if you look at the Haftorah Parsha's bow, you know what page that would be in the blue books? The Haftorah Parsha, what? 1151, thank you. 1151 from the book of Jeremiah. Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah was a prophet. He was my neighbor. He lived in Anatot, which is next door to Pisgat Zev. He's prophesizing about the Pharaoh of his day. It's about 8 centuries after the Pharaoh of Moses' day. So also a wicked, arrogant guy who's causing trouble for Am Yisrael 8 centuries later. And Jeremiah makes a strange statement. See verse 17, Karu Shem Paroi Melech Mitzrayim, verse 17. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Now Pharaoh's a title, right? Like Caesar, it's a title. So this is about 8 centuries after Moses. You'll say you have another Pharaoh causing trouble for Am Yisrael. In verse 17, Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And then Jeremiah makes a very strange statement, verse 22. Kolo kanachash, a voice like a snake. Do you have that in English? That Aaron says that? Verse 22?
You want me to say it?
Yeah.
Egypt's voice will travel like a snake's, but the Babylonians will come with an army and with axes, and with axes will they arrive against her.
Now, what does it mean? A voice like a snake? I didn't know a snake has a voice. What does it mean? Beautiful. But current events. The word paroi, look at the word paroi in verse 17. Paroi, rearrange the letters of paroi. What do you get? Pera. What does pera mean? An evil mouth. Look at the word paro. In verse 17, Pere Shaine, you get pera, an evil mouth. This week, Avu Mamzer, our so-called peace partner, opened up his pera, his evil mouth, a hate-filled rant, not just against the Jewish people in Israel, but against the Donald. This vicious slander. He slandered the Jewish people, and he slandered Israel, and he slandered Trump. The pera. Kolo kanachash. Now a nachash has no voice, but who was the first creature to open up a pera? The serpent, the Nachash in the Gan Eden, slandering God. Told the human couple, God doesn't mean your welfare, he's looking out for himself. So Abu Mamzer, our peace partner, and Paroi, the Pera Avi, Komiki Dinki, we're reading this Haftorah of the week, where our current Pera opened up his mouth and slandered the Jewish people and Israel. What a hate-filled rant. He went on for 2 hours. He must have lost it. I think he's getting Alzheimer's.
It cost him $60 million.
But anyway, Kolo kanachash, a voice like a serpent, a nachash. The nachash was the first creature to slander, to open up a pera, an evil mouth. Now, if you look at a map, Sarah, the Nile River is shaped like a nachash. The Nile River is shaped like a serpent. That's just pretty incredible. I think Para was in denial. Shirley, would you think that? Para was in denial? Anyway. So here you have a clear reference to the current events. Kolo kanachash. A hissing, slandering, pera. slandering us, just like Pharaoh did, like the present day Abu Mazin or Abu Mamzer, the current Perah, the evil mouth. But before we get to the Parsha part of the current events, look at the end of the Parsha. You look at the end of the Parsha, Exodus 13. Exodus 13. Now, I'm telling you, Gershon, I'm scared. I just got a telegram.
So did Moses.
I just got a telegram. Telegram, I'm an old-fashioned guy, so I think about telegrams. So, if you look at the rant that he raved for 2 hours in Ramallah, the current Pharaoh, he said the Jewish people have no connection to the land of Israel. This is this week. No connection. We're a European implant. We're not connected to the Jewish people, no connection to Israel. But look how God answers him.
He said they are
Imposters, colonialists,
children of Palestine.
Children of Palestine. So how does God answer him in the Parsha? Exodus 13, verse 11. I keep in mind there are no extra words in the Torah. Exodus 13, verse 11. Parsha's bow. Exodus 13, 11. What else? Right? Exodus 13, verse 11. That's Parsha's bow. Exodus 13, verse 11. When Hashem your God will bring you to the land that he swore to you and to your fathers and to give you. So Rashi wonders, why is the word to you written twice? To you, to you. God will bring you to the land which he swore to you and to your fathers to give you, to give you. Why is the word written twice? Yehuda, what page would that be in the blue book?
361.
361:11. So Rashi makes an amazing comment. When the son Allah, why is it written twice? Tia be'enecha, as if God is giving you the land of Israel today, and not a Yerusha. And not a Yerusha. We think that the land of Israel is an inheritance from the patriarchs. Rashi says, no, the word to you is written not once but twice, that Eretz Yisrael is the gift that keeps on giving. God gives us the land of Israel every day, unlike what the madman in Ramallah, the evil mouth, slandered us, that we have no right to the land of Israel. God says, forget about it. Not only do they have a right, but I give them the gift, surely, every day. Day by day, and therefore the word to you is written twice in the verse. So we have to appreciate and cherish the Holy Land every day. And don't just look at it, Rashi says, as it would be in a hand-me-down or an inheritance from our forefathers. So we have to appreciate that Eretz Yisrael every day, and this is God's answer to the rant that we heard this week in Ramallah, the hate-filled rant. Now the Torah goes on and says, so therefore, to appreciate the Exodus, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to redeem your firstborn son, right? Verse 15, Exodus 13, verse 15. When Hashem hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he killed the firstborn of Egypt, therefore you have to what? The end of the verse 15 says, every firstborn son you have to what? Redeem. That's called Pidyon Haben. Exodus 13, verse 15, the end of the verse. You have to redeem your firstborn son. There's a whole ceremony. You make a party where you give the Kohen 5 silver shekels, right? So what are you celebrating for? Now, the Bchor was sanctified by God. The Bchor was supposed to be like a Kohen in the Beit HaMikdash. So when we redeem our firstborn son, we are diminishing his Kedusha. What are you partying about? The Bchor should have been like the Kohen, right? Hashem sanctified Bchor. When he spared our firstborn in Mitzrayim, when he killed the firstborn Mitzrayim, our firstborn he spared, God says in the beginning of the Parsha, I'm taking the firstborn to me to be my Kohanim in the Beit HaMikdash. So through the ceremony of Pidyon Haben, you're redeeming your son. He's not a Kohen anymore. He won't serve in the temple. You're diminishing his Kedusha. What are you celebrating about? You should be upset. Why party? When you redeem your son from the Kohen, he's not a Kohen, he doesn't serve in the temple anymore. What's the answer? He's not a Kohen, he's not in the temple. He'll go out in the real world. Yiddish Rachmiel. What the celebration is? Go out there and sanctify the mundane. Get out of the holy temple, right? Not everybody can be a Kohen. Your job, even though you're an ex-Kohen now, is to sanctify and be Mekadesh every aspect of life. And you can't do that when you're cloistered in the temple. Not everybody can be a Kohen. So that's the celebration of Pidyon Haben. We're celebrating that every person has his unique way to bring Kedusha into the world. Not everybody has to be a big kahuna in the temple. Anything in life, wherever you go out in life, in any pursuit that you have the ability, Shirley, and the capacity to bring Kedusha, no matter how mundane that part of life looks like it is. Our challenge is to elevate even what we think is what secular and mundane. And that's the reason for celebrating the Pidyon Haben, even though the sun now is diminishing Kedusha. You make your own Kedusha. Now, Parsha's bow, look at the beginning, Parsha's bow, Exodus 10, verse 1, contains how many plagues? 3 plagues. Why? Bow. You couldn't Gematria go? The bow is Gematria how much? 3. Koinky dinky. Parsha's bow contains the last 3 plagues, and that's found in the name. Bow, right? Bow is Gematria 3, the last 3 plagues. Right? The last 3 plagues are found here in Parsha's bow. Saving the best for last, right? Saving the best for last. So, you have the last 3 plagues of locusts, darkness, and what? And the killing of what? The killing of the firstborn. And the killing of the firstborn. Nachon? Now, Moshe makes a strange statement to Pharaoh. He says in Exodus 10, verse 26, all of our livestock are coming along with us. All of our livestock are coming along. We won't remain even one hoof in Mitzrayim. Strange verse, Exodus 10, 26. All of our livestock goes along with us. Nothing will remain, right? We'll take everything with us. Because we don't know what it means to serve God until we get where? In the desert, right? So therefore we need what? All of our livestock. And he even says, Pharaoh, you have to give us also your animals as well. What do we want Pharaoh's animals for? Very strange, right? So if you look at the verse, according to Kabbalah, there's something incredible. I read it in English, in Hebrew. V'gam mikneinu yelech imanu. People say you cannot take it with you. Jack Benny said, if I can't take it with me, I'm not going, right? V'gam mikneinu yelech imanu. There is a way where you can take your possessions with you. You hear this? Lo tishaer. Parsha. A person, no one dies regretting he didn't spend more time in the office. Anybody like that? Gee, I wish I would have spent more time in the office. So isn't it a shame that a person spends so much of his life engaged in what? In worldly pursuits, and then when he dies, all that time seems to be wasted, right? But according to Kabbalah, there is a way to take it with you. In other words, even when you are working, and you have to do what you have to do, but if your mind is focused on what? Kedusha. On Kedusha, because it's expensive to send kids to yeshiva. It's expensive to have a guest in your home every Shabbos, right? To give tzedakah, you have to have assets. So if a person is working hard for the money, right? But his mind is focused, I want to use the money, to serve Hashem, then even those hours that he spent in the office, there is a way you can take it with. Gam miknein, the word mikne in Hebrew means possessions. So even all those hours spent on acquiring possessions, if your mind is focused on Hashem, then those hours are also will be accrued to you in Olam Haba, because you are focused on the end game. You need the assets. How can a person do chesed and tzedakah and support kids in yeshiva? And how much costs a kid in yeshiva today? $25,000 a kid in New York.
More.
Even more. So therefore, if you're working for that, then even those hours that you spent between mergers and mergers and acquisitions, right? Even that somehow will be accrued to the person where the mikneh, where your acquisitions you can take with you to Olam Haba, if you're focused, keep your eye on the prize, right? And what's the prize? Olam Haba. Pretty interesting. Now, the Torah says the first mitzvah that Hashem gave us was what? Kiddush HaChodesh, right? Exodus 12 verse 1. Rashi begins his Perush. The Torah should have began with HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. That's the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people, not Shabbat, not Milah. The mitzvah of what? Of Rosh Chodesh. That's the first mitzvah. But before we get to that, I want to show you, I told you that in Parsha of the week, there's also current events, right? You look at Exodus 11, verse 10. Moses and Aaron did all of the wonders for Pharaoh. Vaychazek Hashem et leiv Pharaoh. God strengthened and hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not let the Jewish people go. You see that with our peace partner. You remember at Camp David, was it at Camp David? When Ehud Barak was negotiating with the rat Arafat. So Barak says, take everything. It's all out there. Take the Temple Mount, take the entire candy store, take it. Barak was pleading with the rat, take it. What did the rat say? No. Vaychazek Hashem et leiv Pharaoh. God saved us from ourselves. Arafat said, no, he's giving you everything. Ehud Barak was. And then later on, Ehud Omer promised Abu Mamzer everything. And also Abu Mamzer said no. Vaychazek Hashem et leiv Pharaoh. God hardens the heart of our mortal enemies to save us from ourselves. And then the Torah goes on and speaks about the first mitzvah which was given to the Jewish people as a nation. Exodus 12, verse 2. HaChodesh hazeh lochem rosh chadashim. To sanctify time. To elevate time. Why is that the first mitzvah, Gershom? I could say Shabbat, Yom Kippur, the many mitzvahs, 613. Madua v'lama is the first mitzvah is to sanctify time. So Rashi in Genesis 1 says the Torah should have began with Exodus 12, verse 2. Why did the Torah begin with the book of Bereshis? So Rashi says, Koach Masav Higid La'amo. Rashi quotes a verse in Tehillim that if the UN and the EU say you're occupying Arab land, you're supposed to point to the book of Bereshis where God promised the promised land to Israel over and over again. We're not occupying anybody's land. God created the earth, and he gave us this piece of real estate in the world. So therefore, the Torah begins with Bereshis, even though it doesn't contain any mitzvot, because Bereshit is our deed to the promised land. That if the UN says, Rashi, in the year 1040, occupying foreign land, you're colonialists. Abu Mamzer said this week, we're colonialists. So we're supposed to point to the first Rashi in Chumash, Sarah. Kodesh Baruch Hu created the earth. In the book of Bereshit, he's the creator. And over again, he promises the land of Israel to us. So we're not colonialists and we're not occupiers. Genesis has to be learned, even though it does not contain any mitzvot, to prove that we have a deed, we have a right. What's the deed to Eretz Yisrael? The Torah. So therefore the Torah doesn't begin with Exodus 12, verse 2. But Rashi says that this is the first mitzvah that the Jewish people received as a nation, even when we were still in Cairo. Why? Ma nishtana. It's almost Pesach. Why is this different than all the other mitzvahs that it had to be the first mitzvah? Why couldn't it be another mitzvah? And why couldn't it wait until Matan Torah and Har Sinai? We're still in Cairo. The Jews were a Memtesh Sharei Tumah. The Jews were in 49 levels of Tumah. Without the mitzvah of Chodesh, what does Chodesh mean? Renewal. There's no one left to redeem. Professor, without the koyach of Chodesh, the power, the ability to rejuvenate. Without that, the Jews are lost. They're nun sharei tumah. Once you hit the 50 levels of tumah, there's no one to redeem. So therefore, this had to be the first mitzvah. Because without the koyach of renewal, the Jewish people would be totally lost. And therefore, we have a lunar calendar, not a solar calendar. The moon is surrounded by blackness. The moon shines at night. The moon keeps on diminishing. And after a while, it's totally swallowed up in blackness. It looks like it's gone. And all of a sudden, the moon shines again. That's the Jewish people. The Holocaust were totally swallowed up in evil. Looks like the Jewish people are finished. 3 years after the Holocaust. 3 years after the Holocaust, we shined again to come back after 2,000 years and rebuild this wonderful country. That's important. No nation comes back after 2,000 years. No nation comes back after 6 million of us were destroyed. A third of our people were exterminated. To come back like a phoenix from the ashes of Auschwitz and rebuild this wonderful country and resurrect a language after 2,000 years and rebuild families and become the envy of the entire world, the leader of high-tech, low-tech, little Israel. Where does that power come from? Of Chidush, Rosh Chodesh, the power to rejuvenate, to renew ourselves despite the Holocaust and 2,000 years of pogroms and persecution and massacres. We are the great comeback kid. Look at the moon. The moon looks swallowed up, totally black. All of a sudden, the great comeback kid. So this is the koyach of the Levana, of Rosh Chodesh, and therefore this had to be what? The first mitzvah, to renew ourselves. Hashem wants us to sanctify the fact that there can be renewal. There can be change and development, the power to grow. I'm not stuck. I don't have to dwell in the past. You have to get... Everybody makes mistakes in life. You have to watch, just move on. Some people are so crushed by guilt and shame, they're depressed, they cannot move on. We have the power to rejuvenate ourselves, renew ourselves, and to do better, to grow. Chidush, Chodesh. And that's why this had to be what? The first mitzvah in the Torah. HaChodesh hazeh Elochem. Exodus 12:2. I'm giving you the gift of time. Pharaoh gives another reason why this had to be the first mitzvah in the Torah. What's the clearest sign, the difference between a slave and what? And a free person. Remember Kunta Kinte? I'm dating myself. There used to be a TV
Roots.
show called Roots.
Was it a
Roots, a series with Kunta Kinte, Alex Haley. Remember that? If I wouldn't have watched that show, I wouldn't have remembered to say this. A slave has no concept of time. Time doesn't belong to him. It belongs to his master. The clearest sign that you're no longer a slave, that you're a free person, HaChodesh hazeh Elochem. I'm giving you the gift of time. When you were a slave in Egypt, you had no time. It didn't belong to you. But now that you're free, time is yours. Make something of time. Don't kill time. Don't waste time. Now that you're free, you have the ability to what, Abraham? Elevate time and sanctify time, which you didn't have when you were what? A slave. And therefore, this is the first mitzvah demonstrating that we appreciate our status, that we're no longer what? Slaves. We're free. And that's by making time count, which I couldn't do when I was what? A slave. Interesting. Pesach night, there's a mitzvah where parents talk to their children to give over the Masorah. When you sit in the sukkah, Professor, is there a mitzvah to talk to your children about the... No. Don't mix me up. There's no mitzvah in the sukkah to talk about it. Just do it, Nike. When you blow shofar, there's a mitzvah to talk about it. Just do it. You shake a lulav and esrog, there's a mitzvah to talk about it. Just do it. Ma nishtana Pesach. I have another question. You can't ask the same 4 questions every year. People get bored. Ma nishtana Pesach from all the other mitzvot, where it's not enough just to do the mitzvah, eating the Pesach matzah and moror, like you sit in the sukkah, blow a shofar, shake a lulav, it's enough. But ma nishtana Pesach, it's not enough to do the mitzvos by eating the Pesach matzah and moror, but you also have to what? Talk about it and bend your children's ear. Ma nishtana. I think Michael would like that question. It's not in the 4. You can't ask the 4 every year. The kids get bored. Ma nishtana Pesach.
It's a mitzvah to tell the story.
There is no other mitzvah where you have to tell the story. Ma nishtana Pesach. Sukkah is a great miracle, sitting with the magic clouds of glory. There's no mitzvah to talk about it. Why is Pesach unique and different? Again, says this foreigner. Again, if I wouldn't have seen roots, Professor, I wouldn't know this. Slaves have no parent-children relationship. There's no parents and no children. The children don't belong to their parents. Who do they belong to? The Mastasa. As a slave, you couldn't tell your children anything. They weren't yours. You remember roots? They sold the kids right from the cradle. They grabbed them from the mother and sold them in a slave market. The clearest sign you're no longer a slave. There's a parent-child relationship. You can talk to your children. They belong to you now, which they didn't when you were a slave. So to show that we no longer are slaves, we appreciate our freedom, we talk to our children. We give over the Masorah, the parent-child relationship, which did not exist when you were a slave. And that's another reason why Pesach is unique. It's not enough just to do the mitzvah, but there's also a mitzvah to tell the story. Parents and children. That's pretty interesting. So you eat Pesach, you eat what? Matzah and moror. And according to Hillel, you have to eat the matzah and the moror and the Pesach what? Together. What does matzah symbolize? Freedom. 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 What does moror symbolize? Bitterness. The two opposites, Golda, but you got to eat them together. That's life. You got to take the matzah with the moror. You can't have one without the other. You got to take the good with the bad. So Hillel said you got to eat together. The matzah, the symbol of freedom and joy, and the moror, the symbol of bitterness in life. You have to take them together. Therefore, how do you express great joy? Tears. How do you express great sorrow? Tears. Isn't that incredible? God is usually so God is so benevolent with the gifts that He gives us. Why do we express great sorrow and great joy the exact same way? Tears of sorrow, tears of joy. Why? God could have come up with another way to express sorrow and joy. Why identical? To prove that what? That's life. That's life. Tears of joy, tears of sorrow, matzah and moror. You can't have one without the other. Only He knows why. But that's what life is all about. And that's what we acknowledge what? On Pesach night by eating the symbol of joy, matzah, together with what? With the moror. That's pretty incredible. So on the happiest day, Pesach night, we're sitting there like a king at the table. We're eating moror. We're leaning back, free like a prince, dressed in white, and we're eating bitter herbs. Who sang? That's life. Frank Sinatra. That's life. Take the good with the bad.
He said knocked down in April. Back up.
Right?
Up in May.
Riding high in April, shot down in May. That's life, right? Now, there are 4 questions you ask on Pesach night, Professor, but the 5th question is the most important. When do we eat? When do we eat? You're saying a long Haggadah. When do we eat? I'm not making this up. Avram, this week you have to ask the 5th question this year. When do we eat? What do I mean by that? When do we eat? When was the first time a human being was commanded to eat the korban? Now remember, Noach, Cain, Hevel, Adam, they all brought korbanos. Aviv, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Would anyone dream of eating a korban? Sacrilege. The korban all got burnt up to Hashem. Who would dare eat a korban? It belongs to God. The first time in human history, Avi, where a human being was commanded to eat the korban was when? Pesach night. First time in human history, which was a revolutionary idea. Korban, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, would they dare eat a korban? It was all burned up to Hashem. On Pesach night, God says, I'm creating a people. Instead of burning the korban, you're going to what? You're going to eat it. Now, normally a korban, you burn it on a mizbeach. What do you do with the blood?
Goes to the ground.
The blood you smear on the walls of the altar.
Oh.
That's what you do with the blood. You sprinkle, you smear on the walls of the altar. What did God command us on Pesach night? To eat the korban and take the blood and smear it on the doorpost, inside or out.
Inside.
Yeah, you can't trust the movie. The book is better. See, the movie has it on the outside.
Which makes sense.
But Rashi says, no. God says, we know where you live. God doesn't need any signals, Abraham. So the movie was right, but this stuff they got it wrong. They didn't learn Rashi. The blood was smeared on the inside of the house. What for? Getting all the walls dirty. Well, we're leaving the next day anyway.
So if
Remember Fiddle on the Roof? They're leaving. They get expelled from Anatevka. So she's cleaning up the house. She's I can't leave a dirty house. I remember. So why do we have to smear the walls with blood? We're leaving the next day anyway. But what's the explanation? Says the Maral Prague, something incredible. Normally a korban, you burn on the Mizbeach, and the blood is smeared on the walls of the Mizbeach. On Pesach night, God says, I'm creating a holy people where they and their house become a living Mizbeach. Instead of burning the meat on the Mizbeach, manja. When do we eat? By eating the korban, it's like sacrificing it on the Mizbeach. And instead of smearing the blood on the walls of the Mizbeach, where do we smear the walls, the blood?
On the walls of the house.
Turning my body and my living room into a living, breathing Mishkan Bet HaMikdash. That concept was created when on the night of Pesach, where every Jewish home becomes a Mizbeach. All of us become make-believe Kohanim, sprinkling the dam, not on the Mizbeach, but on the walls of our house. God doesn't need a signal. He knows where we live.
So what happens if the person doesn't put the blood on the
That was just Pesach night.
Only there.
Only Pesach Mitzrayim. Whenever again do we have to sprinkle the blood on the...
If during that time they did not do it, what would happen?
They died.
I don't know. Who said that? I don't know if they would die. God knows where we live. But that was a sign that what? God doesn't need any signals. God says, do this for me. I want you to turn you and your home into a living Mizbeach. So that's the idea. But God doesn't need any signals. So this is the idea. Therefore, a major portion of the Seder revolves around what? Manja. I'm not making this. It's very strange, Goldie. It's almost Pesach, We split up the Hallel. We say the first few parokim of Hallel, time out. We make a huge feast, and then we finish Hallel. Is that the way to go? In the middle of praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you take time out and feed me, and you give a greps, and then you finish the Hallel. Does that make any sense, Shem? Yeah, we do that. Middle of Hallel. Can't you eat after Hallel? So Maral says, it's no interruption. When a Jew eats L'Shem Shemayim, that eating becomes part of Hallel. It's no interruption. Wow. You're feeding your face, but if your mind is on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's a mitzvah to eat on Pesach night, then that eating, God says, is a korban to me. And you're not interrupting the Hallel, it's part of the Hallel. Where a Jew can take the most mundane act, eating, an animal eats, but if a Jew does it with the right kavanah, that eating Reb Nochum becomes what? Part of Hallel. This is good Seder night talk. I hope you're writing it down. And that concept was created when? Pesach night. Pesach night. Abraham wouldn't dare eat a korban. Yitzchak, Yaakov, sacrilege. But Pesach night, we became God's special holy people. So instead of burning the korban on the altar, when I eat it, it's like being burned on the altar. My stomach becomes like a mizbeach. That's pretty incredible. Now, this idea is just unbelievable. Please turn to Exodus 13, verse 4. Exodus 13, verse 4. God says, today you're going out, b'chodesh Aviv. See that, Shirley? Exodus 13, 4. English has it right. Today you are leaving. What do they say? B'chodesh?
You're leaving in a month of springtime.
It doesn't say it. It says Aviv. It says Aviv.
You know what I'm saying? You
Not
said-
Tel Aviv.
You said where's it say in English?
Thank you. The month of Tel Aviv. Says the Zohar something incredible. Gold, if you don't fasten seatbelts for this, you might fall off your chair. Why is the month of the Exodus called Aviv? Aviv is an acronym. FBI, CIA, NYPD. Av Yud Bet. Look at the word Aviv in the Hebrew. It's an acronym. Av Yud Bet. The father of the 12 tribes. What does that mean? Says the Zohar HaKadosh, until Exodus night, God was a Borei Olam. God, Kavyochel, wore the hat. He's a Borei, he's a creator. On Exodus night, we gave God another title. He became Av Yud Bet. He became the father of the 12 tribes. The Jewish people were born as a nation when? Pesach night, Mazel Tov. Who's the father? Therefore, the month is called Aviv, says the Zohar. I'm over 40, I can talk Zohar. Av Yud Bet. Until now, God was the Borei Olam, creator. On Exodus night, we gave him another title. When we were born on Exodus night, he became Aviv. He became the father of the 12. Therefore, God says, B'ni b'chor Yisrael, the first message he told Pharaoh, my child, my firstborn is Israel. God gave birth to us on Pesach night. We made him an Abba on Pesach night. Therefore, the month is called Av Yud Bet, Aviv.
Maybe that's another sign of the blood on the walls is birth.
Oh, okay. I didn't think about that.
Also 12 months as well as 12 tribes.
Av Yud Bet, right? The father of the 12 tribes.
Chodesh Aviv, is that?
Yes.
That's why the month is called Aviv. It's an acronym that Av means father, Yud Bet means 12. On Pesach night, God became the father of the 12 tribes. And therefore, it's amazing. Jeremiah says, God says, Zacharti lo chesed norayich. God says, I remember the love of your youth, the chesed you did for me when I took you out of Egypt. How could a human being do chesed for God?
Child.
What? We made God a papa. The papa. Professor, we made God a proud papa. So he tells Jeremiah too, I remember the chesed. We did a chesed? We made God a proud papa. Until the Exodus night, he was Borei, he was creator. We gave him another status now. Now he's the Av Yud Bet. And therefore God's eternally grateful to us. And he tells Jeremiah, I remember the chesed that you showed me when you followed me in the desert after the what? The Exodus. That's pretty incredible. The special relationship that we have with God was created when on Pesach night. On Pesach night. Now, how many plagues were there in Egypt? People say 10. I think there was 11. Because take a look at Exodus 12:30. Moshe is right 9 out of 9. He called 9. He's batting 1,000. And that morning, he told Pharaoh, tonight at midnight, all firstborn, including your firstborn, will drop dead. Exodus 12, verse 30 says what? Any volunteers?
Pharaoh rose up at midnight.
Pharaoh rose up at night. Rashi said he got up from his waterbed. That's what Rashi said.
He and all his servants...
1 minute.
Oh, sorry.
Rashi says he got up from... Remember the waterbed? Now, what does Rashi have to tell me he got up from the waterbed for? What's the Torah telling me? Pharaoh, 9 out of 9, Moshe Rabbeinu called it exactly right. He told you this morning that tonight at midnight, every firstborn, including your firstborn, will drop dead. So you would think that Pharaoh would what? Call a meeting of the generals, go and remember when there were, after 9/11, they took President Bush into a secret underground in Las Vegas, in a bunker somewhere. Rashi said he took off his clothes, he put on his PJs, and he went to sleep in his waterbed like a regular night. I think there were 11 plagues, Yoel. I think the Egyptians suffered from amnesia. Moshe Rabbeinu, 9 times he called it right. How could you go to sleep like a regular night? Call a meeting, go hide somewhere in a bunker. No, he got up from his bed just like it was a regular night. This is the 11th plague where a person can become so totally evil that he just has amnesia. Or Pharaoh was in denial. Get it? In denial? In denial. He goes to sleep, right? Like a regular night. And he gets up screaming in the middle of the night. His firstborn dies. The movie got that right, huh? And he survives, even though he's also a firstborn, but he survives. Why does he survive? Why does he survive?
Tell the story.
Get on Eyewitness News, right? On CNN, to tell the story. So that's pretty amazing that a person can become so, how do you say fachadet in English?
Confused up.
So mixed up that you see the disaster, Sarah. This is Abu Mamzer. Look what's going on in Gaza, a disaster, a humanitarian disaster. They don't do anything about it. They have amnesia or whatever. That's pretty incredible. Now, what do you use for the Korban Pesach? You take a lamb, right? So the Rambam, I'm not making this up, the Rambam wonders in Moreh Nevuchim, why don't you take a turkey? A turkey has less cholesterol. Even he knew, right? In those days. Why do you take a lamb? So Maimonides is something amazing. That the lamb, like the Hindus do in India today, holy cow. The Egyptians worshipped the lamb. And so did the Jewish people. Look in the book of Ezekiel. The Jewish people like to keep up with with the Joneses. That was the in thing to do, right? So the Jewish people also worship the lamb. So therefore God says, don't take a turkey. The object of your sin will be your tikkun. Yahadut, that's the way surely Yahadut works. The way you sin is the way what? You do tshuva. You sin by worshiping the lamb or the goat. Holy cow. So now take the sheep and the goat and what? Do it my way. Da 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 da. So everybody sins. Who doesn't sin? The tikkun is the way you sinned is the way you make the tikkun. You see that throughout Judaism. And therefore God commanded the Jewish people to take a lamb or a goat and not and not what? A turkey. So before you know it, we'll be reading this on Pesach night, right? The Haggadah. What does the word the Haggadah mean? Where does the word Haggadah come from? Where does the word Haggadah come from?
Stories or...
It comes from Exodus 13:8. You got the book handy? Exodus 13:8. Vigarata lebincha. The word Haggadah comes from Exodus 13:8. Vigarata lebincha. You see that?
Tell that to your children.
Tell it. Haggadah means to tell it over. Vigarata lebincha. Tell it over to your children.
13:8.
13:8. See the Hebrew? Chet vigarata. The word Haggadah. Now, this idea that the Pesach, that my eating it, my house becomes what, Professor? On Pesach night, we're wearing the Kohen's garb. We're wearing what? A white kittel. The Kohanim wore that. On Pesach night, we become virtual Kohanim. And my living room becomes a virtual what? Temple. And my house becomes like a Mizbeach. This idea goes so far, Reb Nachum. If you don't write this down, I'll be disappointed. Take a look at Exodus 12, verse 46. Exodus 12, verse 46. Where do you have to eat the lamb chop? Anybody want to read that? Exodus 12, 46. I'll wait.
In one house it shall be eaten. You shall not remove any of the meat from the house to the outside. And you shall not break a bone.
The Pesach has to be eaten in one house. You cannot take the meat of the korban outside the house. Why? It's a nice evening. It's a nice evening. I want to eat it. Why does it have to? Why you have to eat it inside the house?
As you said earlier, it's equivalent to you wouldn't take a carbon out of the base of Mikdash.
The man is beautiful. The man is beautiful. Can you eat a korban outside the Mikdash? A korban cannot be removed outside the Mikdash. On Pesach night, my home becomes a Mikdash. My home becomes a temple. And Rav Avram said it. Just like you can't take a korban out of the temple, you can't take the korban Pesach out of my virtual temple. It must be eaten inside the temple. What's the temple? Every Jewish home on Pesach night becomes a virtual temple. Therefore, it must be eaten inside. You can't take a korban outside the Mikdash. So Pesach night, I think it's called show and tell. Is that what it's called, show and tell? Or a deja vu all over again. We're dressed in white, we're eating the foods. We are reenacting Avram, that first night in Cairo. Huh? Where it all began. By eating the foods that they ate, we are being transported back in time. Because in Judaism, time is not a straight line. Time moves what? Professor, right? Cyclical, right? How do I know it? What? What do you say? On Chanukah and Purim? What's Bazman Hazeh? What's Bazman Hazeh? Bayom Mahim. So my great-great-grandfather, Bnei Yissaschar, Kabbalah says, when Pesach comes around, or any holiday comes around, you're not reliving an ancient fact. Those cosmic spiritual forces that were present that first night on Pesach in Cairo, they come back. And I can tap into that. Pesach, Sukkot, Shavuos, Chanukah, Purim, we're not celebrating ancient events, Avi. Those holy, spiritual, cosmic forces of Kedusha that were present then, they're back. It's like a merry-go-round, and we tap into that. By eating their foods, it becomes real for us. Because you are what you eat. Who said that? You are what you eat.
Some chef.
Hmm?
Some cook.
Yul Gibbons? I don't know.
Nutritionist.
What?
A nutritionist.
Hmm? Now, the matzah, man. The Parental says something strange. Now, you can look this up in Google. Slaves in Egypt, what was their diet?
Matzah.
Matzah, thank you. Wasn't Wonder Bread. Says the Abarbanel, because matzah, tell me about it, constipates. You need Roto-Rooter. Matzah constipates. You don't have to take so many toilet breaks. You can stay in the slime pits longer. Pesach, you need a lot of prune juice. Matzah does bind you up. Says the Abarbanel, they fed us matzah in the slime pits because you don't have to take so many toilet breaks. It fills you up and you can make more bricks. So matzah, Abraham, was the symbol of our shame and degradation. At the stroke of midnight on Pesach night, remember Cinderella? That symbol of shame and degradation on Pesach night, matzah became the symbol of what?
Freedom.
Of freedom and joy. Isn't it incredible? This 5 minutes to midnight, it was a symbol of shame, slavery, and degradation. At the stroke of midnight, that same matzah now becomes a symbol, Avi, not of joy and not of slavery, of degradation, the symbol of what? Freedom and joy. How could it be the same matzah? What's the message? That's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu operates. That the salvation will come from the degradation. Two sides to the same coin. Remember we said tears of joy, tears of sorrow. You put them under the microscope, can you tell the difference? Matzah. Yes, it was a symbol of slavery, but midnight became the symbol of what? Of freedom and joy. So all of the suffering that we have in life is just a springboard for what? For great joy and salvation. If not in this world, then certainly in Olam Haba. But we're all paying our dues down here, you know. But there is meaning to suffering. No one suffers an ounce more than he has to. It's all lefi cheshbon. That's a symbol of matzah. Slavery, freedom, the same matzah. So we have to know that whatever happens in life, it's all part of the plan. Right? Things are going according to plan. Not my plan, but what? HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan. Thank you. On Sunday we have a shiur, the Exodus. Was it God's hand or God's finger? Because it says he used his hand and it says he used his finger. What difference does it make? We know God doesn't have a finger or a hand. So what does it mean? That's Sunday, 2 o'clock. Exodus, God's hand or God's finger. Thank you and Shabbat Shalom.